am I running for state representative? I'm running for state representative because people like us need representation. There are all type of special interest groups out there that want to give us input. And they say, well, we represent the people. But you know what? They also represent the dollars donated. And I don't care if that gift is $250, $1,000, I don't care if it's $1,500. They represent a special interest group. And if we say corporations aren't people, neither are special interest groups. This is about us. Our largest donor is sitting right there in this chair. Our second largest donor is a landscaper up in Canal Fulton that I do business with and have for 4 years. And she just posted recently an endorsement online for us and why she would vote for us if she lived in the district, and she does not. She does a lot of business in the district. But that's the type of thing we're looking for. This is just about us. I'm just a man. And I may not know all the ins and outs of government, but you know what? You don't have to. The state of Ohio, because it's a 2-year term, is set up with folks like this that are experts in legislation. I was chatting with Elizabeth the other night. She said, you know what? I'm halfway to being an expert at legislation. I said, what do you mean? She said, it takes 10,000 hours officially for you to be considered an expert or a professional of anything. She said, I've got enough time and I'm about halfway there, Dad. But I'm still going to, she said, eventually I'm going to be an expert. There's your legislative experts. What's my job? To get out to the people, to get out to the businesses, to head off businesses that are looking to leave our area, to get together and sit down with roundtables like this. That's the first thing I'll do in office, is I'll contact every business owner I know, and there's a lot of them, and we're going to sit down, we're going to talk it out, and we're going to find out not what the government can give you for free, not what grant is available, not what's going to be this or that. No, entrepreneurs understand business. They make something out of nothing or little. And if we're ever going to bring economic growth back to Stark County and back to District 49 in particular, in Canton, Ohio, and Massillon, Ohio, Pike and Bethlehem, it's going to come through entrepreneurs, not through big business. Guess what, guys? Google's probably not coming here. Amazon's probably not coming here. And the list goes on. But we keep talking about tax breaks and tax abatements and this and that. That's not where it's going. So I just want to lay out some of the major points. Again, we're here for the people that work hard, they raise their families, and they ask for very little. And I'm going to ask you today, everyone in this room, for your vote November 6th, because we can make a change, because this election is about us.
Thank you. All right, so I wanted to just go ahead and give them a round of applause again, both of our candidates. I think they've each got a couple of minutes to stay afterward if you want to individually seek them out for a question.
Oh. All the time you need.
Or did you? Sorry,
as long as I get a snack before bed, I'm good.
So what do you want? I'm sorry, are you asking us to say a few words?
I
thought that was open.
I mean, oh, well, we weren't doing a debate, so it was
Candidates.
just meet them.
Okay.
So I mean,
Okay, cool.
You can do what you want, but.
You know, I think this, and let me say this, because I didn't really go into that, and James as well. When we talk about legislation, and when we talk about state government, one of the things that I can say for myself, I hit the ground running because I had city council. Had 13 years. Legislation is important. Understanding legislation is important. And your legislative aid is to aid you in that process. They're there 7 days a week to aid you, not to do your job. Your job is to connect with everyone, including the interest groups out there. Because guess what? Everybody here represents an interest group. Today I'm wearing pink for Breast Cancer Week, for Breast Cancer Month. And uniquely enough, there's a group of women that come up to the State House that meet with you about breast cancer, and they want to talk to you. You need to talk to them. There's people that come to the district each and every day that represents interest, and guess what? They're representing you. And you have to meet with them. The same thing with City Council. City Council meets with everybody. Jason, you meet with everybody, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And you meet with the people. Small business is important. I ran a nonprofit. I hired 54 people. 10 years we ran that organization. We started charter schools way back in the day for nonprofit organizations for people with disabilities. I started a DD agency. I know what it takes to, I know what policy is all about. I know what the the Ohio Revised Code talks about people with disabilities. So if somebody comes in my door that want to talk about DD issues, guess what? I got that firsthand knowledge. When they talk about children and families and when they talk about what they're going through, guess what? My aide doesn't experience that I do. They're like 20, 25 years old. They don't know that. And this year I was really blessed. I had some really good aides. One was actually went to Congress just the other week. Now he's working in Congress. Another worked with a different campaign. We had some good aides. But it really takes leadership. And when you go in that office for the first time, you're dealing with 99 people. You have to work on both sides of the aisle. You have to be able to work with Democrats and Republicans. And in the House, there's 99 people, which means that you at least need 51 of those people to pass any legislation on the floor. And then you have to go over to the Senate to work on the bill. You have to follow those bills. It's more than just introducing 24 bills, it's working those bills. And then next year you have to come back and campaign again. The reality is, this is not just a plaything. Our state right now lags behind everyone in economics. Who said it's economics stupid? Is the economy stupid? Who said that? Wasn't that Reagan? Who was that? Economy stupid. Was that Reagan? Reagan said that, I think. But we're 43rd in economic health. We're 38th in economic growth. We're 33 in job growth. We're the 6th worst in median income. That's wrong. We're headed in the wrong direction. The Republicans have had control for 18 out of 20 years. 18 out of 20 years. This is their party. This is their problem. We got answers. Democrats are, and you know, I work across the aisle. When Maslin had an issue, they came to us, guess what? Me and Kirk Schuring, we sat together and we worked on that issue. Sad to say, Christina Hagan didn't support us in that. But we did move forward for Maslin, for Stark County. It's not about party, it's not about Republican or Democrat, it's about Stark County.
Turn it into a debate.
There's no
Turn it into a
debate.
debate.
What are you talking about, the debate?
Can I turn it into a debate? Since
No.
you're style going after parties and stuff.
But that's not you. Party is, you can talk about that too if you want. My issue is this. When we talk about legislation and moving our community forward, it's about our children, it's about our families, it's about our neighborhoods, it's about our communities. And that's why I am running for state legislature. That's why I continue to serve. Whether I'm in this seat or not, I always serve. That's who I am. That's what I've done. And that's what I will do again. You know, James, when you, after I got in office, what, 2 months after I got in office, you took out a petition? 2 months? That's okay. Anybody can run for this seat. But I'm in the seat. And I need people that are interested in serving this community. And I will work with anybody, including you, James. Actually, I reached out to Dan McMasters and Healy's sister, which is Joyce Healy, right after I won and said, hey, can we work together? And I'll do the same even after this. And I appreciate your support in November 6th. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm good.
Any questions? Yes.
I don't have a question. I'm Kathleen Purdy, but I have a comment. Sure. And I appreciate what both of you are saying. And when we talk about education, of course, I live and breathe it. I wear my Army hat because I have a bad hair day sometimes.
I don't.
However, I have a son that's currently serving, and this is his 20th year serving in the Army. So I wear it out of pride for him, because when you're talking about being of service, the family serve too. And I don't hear a lot of talk about military and how much those soldiers, both men and women, give of themselves. And then since my son is single, it's just me and my daughter. That's the family he has. And so I do appreciate when you talk about service. And he says to me, you know, Mom, I think you just care about politics and education. I said, you know, son, I didn't think about that. I said, but they're both related because our veterans oftentimes, trust me, the veterans oftentimes are the last ones considered. It sounds good to say, thank you for your service. But you don't realize what they give up. When you've been on 3 deployments in 4 years, what they really give up. So that was my long-winded comment to talk about why I do wear this hat. And my dad was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. He served during World War II. And that's when the military was segregated. How are you fighting a war in your segregation? But we don't talk about that. My great-grandfather was World War I. My husband was during the Vietnam era, along with both of my brothers. So we have a history of serving. But I tell my daughter, who's 10 months younger than my son, I'm glad, honey, that you didn't want to, go serve. That you want to stay closer to home and do what you do. And and thank you for the applause, I would tell you, but they just see it as a job. But they don't realize how much of their life they put on the line. So,
Lauren?
Thank you. I would just like to jump in there. I'm really not here to talk about myself.
I think you should.
Well, thank you. Okay, then I will. That's fair. But I do first of all want to thank you guys for having this. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, any public forums, and I know that Martin is here and he talks a lot about the importance of public forums and people being open to have people ask them questions in person, and that's wonderful, so I commend you both. I do want to say that very much. I also want to say thank you to Kathleen for bringing that up, because as a military veteran myself from Stark County, I left Stark County to serve for 9 years in the Navy. I am a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, and I served, thank you. It really was truly an honor to do that and to wear the uniform and to represent our nation. I did serve 2 deployments overseas, and I know, I was single at the time, and I know that my parents were waiting at home for me, and it was hard for all of us. Absolutely. So I do think that we need to spend more time focusing on the returning veterans, and I hope that whichever one of you gentlemen wins, that it will be one of you for sure, that we can all work together as a community to make this a safe, a good place for our veterans to return to and have a soft landing when they come back.
Nice.
So thank you all very much.
Jason, you can send too.
Well, you know what, I will. There's a couple people here from my area, and I'm just here to support the whole government process. Because anybody that gives to our community through being involved in government really cares. And I'm just going to ask one thing of everybody in this room, regardless of where you're from, what area, town, whatever, stay involved.
Yeah.
Okay? Get involved in your neighborhoods. Get involved with your neighborhood associations. Everybody needs to be involved. You don't have to be at the state level or city government level to be involved. Be involved in your neighborhood. Be involved in your city. Together, we all move everything forward.
Right.
Regardless of where any of us get on a campaign cycle, from maybe one seat to another, whatever that might be, the real key is to staying involved and working for the people where you live. And sometimes that's just working to bring them together. Let's get everyone talking again. So get everyone out and get everyone involved. And then we're going to solve the problems that are going on. The problem is when the people become disengaged and you get 20% of people out to vote or 10% of the people out to vote, now you have a very small percentage making a decision for everyone. So let's please all keep working to keep people involved. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for our candidates?
Yeah, sure. You had talked earlier about working with both sides of the aisle to try to pass your legislation. Okay, I was just wondering how much that went into your package involving raising the legal age to purchase rifles to 21 And
You mean the, said that, you talking about my bill?
oh, no, it hasn't been passed. But you introduced a package.
Oh, yeah.
Right, just after the Florida shooting.
Mhm.
And I was just wondering how much of the bipartisan process actually went into that.
Well, a lot, to be all honest. Because, and it's funny you say that, because just this week I received a letter from somebody from the NRA. It's real interesting because they sent me a donation for my birthday event the other day. And they said that they support common sense legislation. When you can buy a handgun, you can't buy a handgun until you're 21. But you can buy an AK-47 at 18. My legislation stops that. It stops that and says, we want to push that to 21, just like the guns. We believe that, I don't believe you need an AK-47 to hunt, to do any of those things. And that's what went into my decision. So those individuals that come in my office, what I told you was from Masson, I don't know if I said that here or on the radio earlier this morning, but I had 2 women from Masson come to my office. And they both were dressed similar alike, and they came in campaigning for us to do some common sense gun legislations. That day they had kids all across the State House advocating at the top of their lungs for us to do responsible gun legislation. And that's what went into my decision. And that was both ours and these that came into our office. So I appreciate your question.
I'm sorry, I guess the actual substance of my question was, I mean, if you look at FBI statistics, 98% of gun homicides are used, there's a handgun used for those murders. 97% of gun homicides are used with illegally either purchased or obtained weapons.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering where further regulating the American citizen is going to put a stop to any of what we see in this, especially in this city. In the city of Canton, if you look at gun crime, you have people out here, obviously, we have homicides almost weekly in the city.
Not used to.
Yeah, well, right. Well, for my entire life growing up, we've had homicides on a regular basis. And I don't see where taking away the common citizen's right to self-defense, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but I do believe that further regulating the American people's access to firearms will limit their ability to defend themselves against these illegal weapons, which come up with an estimated 1/4 of the weapons in America.
Well, again, my legislation addresses the issue with those AK-47s, those semi-automatic rifles that you're talking about. To get a gun in the state of Ohio, you have to be 21, right?
A handgun, yes.
Right. So that bill that you're speaking on is just saying we're going to raise this to 21. My belief is, and I worked as a city councilman during those same times that people were shooting up our neighborhood.
Right.
And then we got ShotSpotter. And then the behavior kind of decreased. That was the legislative piece that we were able to address right off the bat. And not only that, my kids, I live on 12th Street. I live in the heart, and I still live there, okay? When all of that was going on, my kids hit the floor. I never taught them to do that. Never taught my kids to hit the floor. But they knew for some reason instinct hit the floor means you're going to protect yourself, right? I don't know if they got it from TV, but I was really enraged with that. And I couldn't do anything about it at the local level because the state has held the city's hands, except for stuff like ShotSpotter, except for us being able to hit more police on the street.
Right.
But the police is not going to stop a bullet. If I want to shoot somebody right here, they can't. They're not here. They ain't going to stop them.
No.
But we need more police on the street, yes. But our state says, we're going to take your local government funds, we're going to put it in this kitty that has $2.5 billion.
That has nothing to do with it.
Local government funds has everything to do with it.
That has nothing to do with it.
Okay, local funds, if you're a city council person, you'll understand, and Jason will understand this. When you have local government funds, that money was going for our safety forces. That money was going for our police. That money was going for our discretion, that was going for our infrastructure. That's what the local government fund is for. And they took it away. That was a promise that was done for years ago, way before probably all of us was born. And they took that away. And now they're sitting on our tax dollars, $2.5 billion at the state level, in a hopper. And guess what? They want to trickle it down to businesses, for the most wealthy, but not for our local communities. And to address your question, when you take that from the safety forces, then you tie their local hands. And we cannot do anything. The state has to. That's why I brought forward common sense legislation. Because young people like yourself said enough is enough. We're tired of your promises. Let's do work.
Did you say enough is enough on guns? Did you want to adjust and start changing these laws? I'm just asking you.
I believe in common sense gun regulation, which is what we have.
Right.
That's what has existed.
Okay.
I mean, I agree, a police can't stop a bullet. So I don't see why we're telling people that they should solely depend on the police. I don't see why, if you look at your specific regulation, or I'm sorry, not your regulation, your bill,
Which
would,
the one that deals with
the one that's proposed.
AK-47?
Right, the bill that you're referencing, it also has, it'll turn over the, I'm sure you know it, the Charleston loophole, which I don't disagree with, except the reason that the Charleston loophole is even proposed is because Dylan Roof was able to buy a gun because the federal government didn't get back with the people selling a gun within 72 hours. The reason that the Florida shooter was able to get a gun is because the FBI didn't do their job. What we're looking at a lack of government dependency. We're looking at a lack of people being able to trust their government. So we're not looking at something that the government needs to crack down and regulate on the American people.
But there is something we can regulate, if I may. There is something they can regulate. First of all, as a society and as a government, we don't even know when you become an adult. We let you drive at 16. We let you elect at 18. We let you serve in the military and fire tanks, for God's sake. And we're going to take away your right to defend your family with a simple firearm? And this local legislation coming back to restricting locally, unacceptable. Ohioans and the public, the people.
You're referring to localities.
Localities trying to control firearms. It doesn't work. First of all, ask Chicago if it works. That's nonsense.
They don't have
and the
control.
state level has control over guns for a reason. So when I drive from Massillon tonight, or from Canton to Massillon, or through the townships, or whatever I do tomorrow, I'm not violating laws because I crossed over a city limit. It is common sense law, and it's state law, and the law is just fine. And it's not going to stabilize. There's no legislation that's reduced. You know who's reducing deaths in the county? Guys like Lamar Sharp that are getting in the Navy, in the neighborhoods and meeting with people, and getting with those kids and changing his generation. That's just one example. You know who's making differences? All the people in the churches that are down there feeding the poor and working with those on the ground level. You know who's changing? People like that will walk in the neighborhoods that you guys probably, most of you honestly probably won't go into, behind bushes and trees by pit bulls and everything else, and ask the people what their needs are. People like me, and I will do that, and I've done that. We've got almost 10,000 doors knocked now. And we're going right to the people because I'm tired of politicians telling me what I should be thinking and what the people think. I'm one of the people, I'm talking to the people, she's talking to the people, and they think differently in a lot of ways. And they don't want local gun control.
Okay, so when you say local gun control, let me be clear. At 18, you're saying it's okay to buy an AK-47, and all 18-year-olds should be able to do that. Is that correct? Is that what he's advocating for?
Well, your specific legislation says assault-style weapon. What is an assault-style weapon?
AK-47. Semi-automatic weapon.
Semi-automatic.
That goes in the
You just said semi-automatic weapons.
No,
First of all,
and
you
I'm
said
not-
machine guns.
and I'm not
Machine guns
agreeing.
are fully automatic weapons. Machine guns are not semi-automatic weapons. And even outside of that...
AK-47.
Oh, okay, but assault-style weapons are not... They're not semi-automatic weapons. Handguns are semi-automatic weapons.
Okay.
Everything that isn't a revolver
That's
is
21.
semi-automatic.
You have to be 21 to get
Right.
those.
Oh, okay.
This legislation bumps every one other guy up to 21.
Right, everybody that can go and
Is
fight
that
for their
okay?
country and die,
Do you support
but they can't own a weapon to protect their home.
Why
So
do
you
you
don't support it or you do?
Why do you need an AK to support your home from a robber that you can't use a Glock?
What's the difference though?
I'm asking you, because I can
But what's
defend
the
my
difference
home with a
between-
Glock.
What's
I
the
don't need
difference
an
between
AK.
having an AK-47 and an AR-15
Why do
or a
you
Glock
need an
15?
AK?
But what's the difference?
I mean, I don't know.
How?
I think
We don't need to argue, but
I think we're gonna get too far into it. Honestly, this is not productive, because there are issues like gun control, and I think, Thomas, I understand, we have different views of that, and I think we can agree on that. But there are areas we're going to agree on, and we're gonna agree with Democrats, Republicans to bring that in. It's gonna take time to debate that, but I think we get too deep into the weeds tonight, and I think that's where we're going now. We're not gonna solve that issue if we stay here all night long.
Right.
But one of the things is,
But it's good to address it, I'm glad you asked it.
There are handguns
Absolutely.
that fire
thank you for your
5.56.
question.
There are handguns that fire 12-gauge shotgun rounds.
Right.
So I don't understand the difference between if the gun's this big or this big, other than the reason you can't buy it at 21 is you can conceal it.
Let me show you something, okay? This is state government, and this is local government, and this is federal government. You say that it's okay for someone 18. She says it's not.
Right.
She comes with the issue, you don't, okay? Am I supposed to neglect her because you didn't? I still got
We
to
went down to
advocate
the
at the
state
top of my
house
lungs.
at 300
for-
people stood at the state house.
I understand, but I'm saying to you that who came to my office, you can come in, who came to my office was people advocating for common sense gun reform and students all across the nation at the same time. And at the same time I dropped my bill was the same time John Kasich dropped his bill. This is not a Democrat-Republican issue. I need to be clear here, okay? A lot of Republicans have guns too. I don't have a problem with people carrying guns. I have a problem with an 18-year-old can go into a store because they're mad at a friend at school being able to buy one of these weapons and coming and shooting up a school. I have a problem with that.
How often has that happened?
It's happened time and time again.
In
Look on
American
this, look on TV.
They don't walk into
Every
gun
year
stores
we're
and
experiencing.
just buy a weapon and walk out with a weapon. That has not happened on any scale.
That has happened. And there's happened in relationships, and there's a lot of empirical information behind that. We got to start doing what's right for Ohio, and that's one common sense legislation I think that we can do. And I'm not here to debate whether it's right, wrong, or different. The legislature will bring it up. And at the end of the day, guess what's going to happen?
It's not gonna pass anyway this year.
It will not pass. You know why? Because there's 66 Republicans who do not want common sense gun
But you work
laws.
That's
across
not
the
common
aisle.
sense,
Okay.
though.
You work across the aisle.
I do, on legislation that's moving forward.
make your
That bill
cases,
is
win the
mine
bill.
solo.
Next question. Thank you.
Kind of change the attitude of people.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
Yes. Does anybody else have another question?
Well, I will say this, and I got to say this last, and I got to control.
Jay, do you have a question?
Democrats, the Democrats always get the bad handle when it comes down to gun reform. When it comes down to guns, they think that we are the ones that are trying to do restrictions. But the only restrictions that have ever been placed on guns have come by way of Ronald Reagan, and that was the Brady Bill. Bill Clinton let that go. He didn't even renew it. That was the only thing that ever came down that put restrictions on guns in our federal level. That's what I do know.
Thank you. JD has a question. JD?
We are here for the people, and I say this respectfully. I support you both. No hard feelings either way.
The man, no hard feelings either way. It's any sports club.
Perfect. Does anybody have any other questions?
Company topic.
I know, that's like the perfect note.
I got a question and a request. And it is for whoever has a seat, gets a seat, whatever it might be. How, and please, however you do it, I guess I'm planting the seed. Bring those local government funds back.
How did you start?
I am not after, I'm going to address the rainy day fund. It has a particular purpose. We've talked about it many times. It has a set for an economic downturn. I think it should be larger. Now, I have talked to FOP and other organizations. I said, listen, we will find you funding, but stop talking about the rainy day fund, because guess what? Have you ever watched the weather forecaster? These guys get paid no matter how far off. And that's the problem with people who don't touch the rainy day fund. They're calling their own rainstorms, and there's a chance of rain in our area, or it's raining in our area, or it's raining in Cleveland. It's raining. Canton, Ohio is not the only one. Massillon, Ohio is not the only one. Canton Township, I've got strong support in Canton Township. They're like, Jim, I said that money's not coming back, but we will make sure for the things you need from government, we still have to find ways to make government smaller. The rainy day fund, everybody wants to get their hand on it. Every special interest group, the FOP was down in Columbus trying to get their hands on it. No, we will take care of your needs. The rainy day fund is for an economic downturn. No, times are good now. Now it's time to save. When our family does well, we save money. Guess what? We don't have to go out and borrow when it downturns. It's really about the rainy day fund. That's what everybody's so nervous about. $2.7 billion. Oh, that's a lot of money. No, it's not. What is it, 8-9%? Are you kidding me? It's your family savings account. So when your transmission goes out on your car, you can go put a transmission in your car. I don't have to run down to the payday lending place. At least the interest rate's better, thank you. I'll give you credit for that with the rest of the legislature. But you shouldn't have to do that. Neither should state government. Instead of the localities, and I don't want to sound rude, but instead of them complaining about it all the time, Canton now has an additional, $11.5 million a year coming in potentially with the new tax. What part of that is going to Canton's rainy day fund? Have they established one? Or are they going to spend it all?
I wish we had that luxury.
Well, no, that's what I mean, but everything's got to be looked at one step at a time, and it is about smaller government. Government is still involved in too many things in our lives. I don't want small business grants for small business. I want entrepreneurs. And I want business people to start with their nothing or their little and build something that doesn't require. When I go talk to business owners that are now multi-million-dollar corporations here in Canton, I ask them how much government assistance you started from scratch. How many tax breaks? What have you gotten from the government? They said 0, because that's what's small. That's where growth's going to come from. That's what's going to change the income in the city if we can foster that instead of booting out. I can't harp on it enough, because in 2011 I stood before council. And that's when they threw the hot dog carts, basically, out of downtown Canton. It's a stinking hot dog cart. If I can get a felon, if I can get someone that has no job experience, and I can get them to come up, scrape together, work together, and come up with $1,000, we can put them in business for themselves and let them make a living in this city and in this town. But no, Canton wants to regulate. They don't like hot dog carts. But they can do a rubber rhino, and that looks better than a hot dog cart on the streets. And that rubber rhino hasn't made them a doggone dime in taxes. And they were all worried about, oh, you're not paying your taxes because you're not an official business. Well, guess what? At the end of that year that I got kicked out, my accountant called me and said, how many hours did you spend in the city? We're going to make sure they get your money. Now it's 0. Every year for the last 7 years I've been in business, Canton, Ohio has gotten 0. Canton Township has gotten fees, and everybody else has got their taxes. That's not an indictment on the current, because you weren't even there, Jason, I don't think, at the time.
Right.
But that's the kind of stuff we got to stop. We got to start thinking differently about government. Government is here to serve us. It's not here to drain our pockets. It's not here to fill special interest. It's not here to give you every wish on your wish list. We want our law enforcement taken care of. But you know what? It's not Christmas, and neither is our rainy day fund. We're going to leave it alone, and we're going to build it up.
Well, let me talk about the rainy day fund. As I just said earlier, it is continuing to climb. That comes from your tax dollars, your local tax dollars. We send it to Columbus. Columbus sits on it. Yes, we want to make sure that we have this rainy day fund. We want to continue to build it and build it, and this is our treasure chest. Someday we'll let it go. But I remember that we have a crisis going on right here in the city. I don't know if you guys know, but did you know that we have an opiate epidemic crisis going on in the city? A lot of deaths happening on a regular basis, and that's not by guns, that's by drugs. That's a crisis. But guess what's happening? Our administration brought forth a new program called Behavioral Health Redesign. Have you guys heard of it? Well, let me tell you what happened. Crisis centers shut down, right? Let me tell you, domestic violence and behavioral health system shut down. Conquest just let go of a lot of their staff because of behavioral health redesign. During the hardest crisis time in Stark County. I don't need to talk about the infrastructure. I don't need to tell you about how important it is to build up our infrastructure and get prepared for autonomous vehicles. I don't need to tell you how important it is to get our infrastructure set up so that we have the broadband, the 5G, so that we can attract businesses here. I don't need to tell you, well, where's that money going to come from, Jason? That $11 million that you just raised people's taxes on? That the people said, we're going to do this because we believe in you. You gonna do some more? No. The state needs to step in. And the state needs to release at least $1 billion of those dollars. House Bill 499 says that we will bring grants available to be able to help local municipalities so that they can build themselves out of infrastructure problems. You know, I brought the legislature here to Canton my first term, my first year. And we had a big dinner at the Hall of Fame. 250 people came down. And when they came through, you know one of the things they said when they left? What's up with all the potholes? That's what they said. But when they were down here, they spent some money. That was a good thing, economic impact. Then the week after that, we brought the chamber down here. You know, that's what it's about. Cleaning up our infrastructure so when we have guests, they look at our city a little differently. Businesses that come here may want to, they like our artwork in downtown, right? Arts brought a lot of stuff, so that little rubber thing actually did bring some people downtown. First Fridays is a big example of that. Economic impact. That's what helps us find our way out of this pocket, out of this hole, out of this ditch. Local government funds is your money, and the state is holding on to it, and it's hostage at the State House. And it's time to relieve that and give it back to local government and townships like Canton Township, like the city of Canton, and like Massillon, who are struggling to make ends meet. And I don't need to tell, just ask any council person on any local government, and they'll tell you that all across the state. That's why it's important.
How long has the city been doing without those funds?
It's been dwindling every year, more and more.
How long has it been going without those funds, though? 6 years?
7, 8 of
He's right. They've been doing it.
But what's the city doing to promote small business? What's the city doing to drive that without putting money into it? How are we encouraging our entrepreneurs? I know what's going out there with entrepreneurs. I live with them, talk to them every day. I work with them. There's nobody out there helping. You think there's people out there helping Jessica? She's done everything on her own. All she does is pay her local permits and pay her taxes and tries to make a living and tries to make sure she's priced effectively in a competitive market. That's what we keep going with government. So many people think that government is the solution. Government is not the solution to our economic growth. Government didn't create our economic growth in America. America was created in part because of those that took risks, because of those that went out and built businesses and so on. They pay taxes, we pay taxes, and you know what? You keep saying it's our money in the rainy day fund, and yet it is my money, and I'm okay with it.
Okay.
So let's continue to build that fund and make sure that our state is safe from an economic downturn. That's the whole point of that fund. It's not to spend every time someone thinks I hurt worse than you do. If we're going to pull out of that fund that $1 billion, how much is Canton going to get? How much is Massillon going to get? Let's go to Columbus. Let's go to Cincinnati. Let's go to Dayton. Let's go to Toledo. Let's go to Cleveland. Who deserves it more? Well, they got a bigger population. Yeah, but we might have a bigger need. What are we going to do with that? Let the local governments, you're a local government guy, you want to give them local government gun control. Why don't you let them run their finances, and if they're short on something, they may have to do something without something. They've got $11.5 million more coming in. I don't need a concrete amphitheater down in the grassy space. I love the grassy space down where the Kresge Square is. Don't spend it. Don't spend it on a concrete amphitheater. We're doing just fine with the green space. There's $5.5 million. I just found it for the city, and I never touched a rainy day fund. That's just for starters.
Well, let me give this. This is what happens. I'm going to tell you this. This is what really happens. As a city council person, Jeff, you know this. You have to raise fees on those permits that he's talking about. You have to raise fees on these things that you do, the building permits. You have to raise fees on the landlords. You have to raise fees here. You have to raise fees on your tickets. You have to raise fees. And guess what? People are struggling to pay their rent. In the city of Canton, in the city of Massillon. Rent keeps going up and up and up, and guess what? Nobody's wages is getting any better. I don't need to tell you that's a national crisis.
But
definitely here. Wages are not going up.
People's wages are getting better.
Nobody's paying.
They're busting their butts out there, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the difference between a government solution and a private industry and private enterprise solution. Yeah, she couldn't make enough money to buy insurance, so she qualified for Medicaid expansion.
Okay.
She's out there busting her butt, working 14, 16 hours a day to change that dynamic and make sure that the small man can make it. That's the people I would invest in.
I don't disagree.
I
That's why
don't
started the
want
small
to
business
invest in
center.
concrete amphitheaters with the state's money,
That's
with
why I
the
started-
safety net.
That's why I started the Small Business Center here in the city of Keene, to be able to help women, businesses, to be able to mobilize themselves and start their small businesses. I did that at city council. Now that I'm at the state, I've been talking to the Department of Commerce to see if we can get some resources down to that center, because we need to infuse these small businesses with some stimulus money to be able to go.
But you've been in government for 15 years in the city.
I've been
It's
in the
not
city.
changed.
I've been at the
It's
state
not
for-
changed. You're talking about how people are getting poorer and
You
they're
said it
losing money.
hasn't changed?
You're saying,
But you
you're
just said
saying
you like
income
Marcus
doesn't
Square.
change.
That was in my district.
You're saying income doesn't change. If you were there for 15 years, you're talking about all these businesses, where is the change? You say we're getting poorer, the reports say we're getting poorer, older, smaller. Where's the change? You just said yourself that nobody's making more money. The entrepreneurs are, the business people are.
Let me tell you this, Strengthening Stark says this. This is all of Stark County, a big group of people who did data for years and said, guess what? We're getting older and poorer. We need to start working together. Guess what? NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, guess what? They endorsed me. And I just spoke to a group of businesses out in Belden Village last week, and a woman who opened up her restaurant, who's struggling. She opened up that restaurant, Mulligan's, you guys remember that? And that's a great business. But she did it. And she's saying, you know what? If we can relieve some barriers. And I had a restaurant. I know how hard it is. I know how people came to you. You needed to pay them. It was hard. I struggled. And I couldn't understand why everybody's hand was out. I'm with you on that. But one thing I am with is I'm still with local government needs support. And businesses that are in local government need the city. We can't create jobs. But what we can do is create an environment for jobs to thrive. That's our job. We can give help to the businesses.
I think you're coming to my side. That's what I'm talking about. We need to facilitate those businesses without taxpayer dollars. That's awesome.
It's not a side.
And the NFIB, just so you know, I refused any group endorsements. I never applied for them. I promise you I would have got that one. That's a little ego, but.
And I was one of 4 Democrats to get it. And the reason I got it, let me tell you why I got it. I got it because people like Davies Drugs, the medicine shop, all those independent businesses who said, you know what, we need help. They're about to put us out of business. CVS box stores are putting us under. We came up with House Bill 479. And that was a bipartisan bill as well, with Representative Lips. And we worked with the Ohio Pharmacy Association, because you have to work with these interest groups to get stuff done. And they have all the data. And guess what? They haven't just been ripping off businesses, they've been ripping off cities, they've been ripping off individuals. In the city of Canton, Massillon right now are looking at their policy and thanking people like me because of 479.
No, they're
and
not.
that's why independent...
Your bill's not in effect. It's not even effective. It's not going to pass.
Let me tell you what happened.
Because the president just signed a thing on the gag orders.
He
Now
did.
that's going to have to start in January. Restart. That bill is going nowhere, Thomas.
Let me explain
And you
this.
haven't changed a thing.
Let me
Not in that.
explain this. One of the things you'll learn in politics, and this is something that you'll learn through the 15 years I've been in politics.
Too long.
When you start yelling, when you start screaming about an issue, guess what happens? People listen. And when we started screaming about 479, believe me, everybody said to me and Representative Lips, you know what? You're going to have some trouble because you're dealing with the big boys now. And what they said was our bill would not go nowhere. We started shaking trees, the Columbus Dispatch got on board, everyone else got on board, and guess what? The Kasich administration decided they're going to make a policy about this issue. Then it started going viral. You heard Bloomberg talking about my bill. This is all in the nation. This is all around the nation. From 479 from Ohio. And I'm proud of that bill. Because that's what legislation's about. It's not about going there and saying, well, the president did this. It has to get through Congress and the Senate as well.
It's already done.
It can be overturned, right? It can? Yes.
Overturned by what?
Because it's not law. That's why you are a legislator. Legislates law, then the administrator cannot change it. That's why we keep going on with 479, because Kasich's policy doesn't do anything.
The president signed it into law, just so you know.
He did, and it can be turned over.
Anything can be turned over.
By a president, by one person. But not by the legislator. When the legislator creates law, it becomes law.
That's who did it. He signed it into law.
And they did? For gag orders?
Yes.
And what else did they
The
do?
repository just had an article on it.
Okay, and what else did it do?
Go ahead, you can follow from there.
No, you said it, speak it, tell us. You brought it forward.
Get a little testy there, fella.
No, I mean, you brought it
You
forward.
talked about gag orders, it's done.
Gag orders, clawbacks,
You're
and
lying.
guess what else? This is an issue that came up by whom? By who? By the legislature. Ohio. Not by Donald Trump, by anyone else.
Well, we can argue all night, but the feds were working on it from Health and Human Services for months, even before this law.
For months.
And
And
there's
we've been
several
with it
bills,
for
there's
a
several
long
bills that are
time.
not going to pass in Ohio's legislature, not just ears and lips. I've
If
talked
you
with-
go on my
I've
page
talked with
and read the
Scott.
OPA, you'll see the whole article, the whole document about the impetus for House Bill 479 and who they credit. I'm not here to argue with my opponent. I'm here to say, when you go to legislator, you have to do results, and I've done that.
You passed one thing in 2 years.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And let me say this, when he says one thing in 2 years, one thing in 6 months maybe, and not only that, there's some people haven't passed one bill in 8 years. And all we have to do is look back at our former legislators. And I passed it in a minority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.